Hey, I was super excited about getting my Starlink RV when it arrived at the end of May, yet I somehow felt there would be some problems to overcome. Turns out I was right. While downloading data was pretty easy, sending out a video stream through satellite has its own set of issues that need to be overcome. It's a bit different than live streaming using a cellular bonding service such as LiveView or Teradek. In this video, I'll show you my test of the Starlink at the high desert of California, downtown San Diego, and the coast, as well as lessons learned in dealing with this new piece of live streaming tech. I'll also show you and tell you how I overcame these hurdles and was eventually able to successfully stream 60p HD video over Starlink. Ready? Let's go! First of all, let's take a look at the Starlink. What the heck is it? Well, Starlink is a network of low-orbit satellites deployed by SpaceX. They've launched over 2,000 of these satellites and recently introduced the Starlink RV and Starlink Maritime for portable satellite solutions. The FCC has also given the go-ahead for Starlink to be used in moving RVs and boats. Here's an artist's rendering of a Starlink satellite. The system is pretty easy to set up. The package comes with the dish, Wi-Fi router, a sturdy 75-foot cable, and this mount here that goes on the ground just goes in right here, like that. I don't know if you can see that. Let me close the laptop. Yeah, it just mounts in like that if you want to ground mount it. For an extra $25, you can purchase this Starlink Ethernet adapter. Otherwise, you'll have to connect with Wi-Fi, which isn't bad. The Wi-Fi router actually works pretty well. For now, I'm using a Samsonite suitcase for storage and transport. It works okay, but I have a feeling there's something better out there. Once you have the hardware set up, you can open up the app, which is pretty easy to use. You'll have to connect your phone or tablet to the Starlink Wi-Fi, but once that's connected, the app will show you the status of your Starlink, whether it's offline or connected, search for signal, etc. And there's also a handy speed test for checking upload and download speeds. When you first fire it up, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes for the Starlink to get a signal, but after that, it generally connects in between 1 and 2 minutes, and it's pretty quick. My first streaming test was on the 4th floor of the Idea One building where my studio is located here in downtown San Diego. I connected my Ursa Broadcast G2 directly to the Ethernet port of the Starlink adapter. Hey everybody! I'm here, I've got my Starlink, I'm excited. We're going to set it up with the Ursa Broadcast G2 on top of this tripod and stream to Jeff Corrigan's streaming bridge to see what that looks like. The Starlink, and over here we've got the Black Magic. Unfortunately, as much as I wanted it to work, going straight out of the camera via Ethernet to the Starlink to a streaming bridge just doesn't work quite yet. Next, I tried Vimeo to see if there was a better result. We've got this going on streaming low at 3 megabits per second, but the video is choppy. Yeah, as you can see, the bit rate and the frame rate are dropping wildly. We've got an unstable connection, and that's going Ethernet straight into the Starlink satellite. Let's see, just did a speed test not too long ago, and that turned out okay. I think it's just that the connection is not stable. So 5G is definitely better, at least from downtown San Diego. Even though there was enough bandwidth to support an HD stream, the bitrate and frame rates were fluctuating wildly and thus led to erratic glitches and jerky movements during the video stream. It turns out this is a common issue when using Starlink and Blackmagic cameras, or ATEMs. I did some Googling and I found a YouTube video by Doug Johnson who had the same experience with Blackmagic cameras and the Starlink. Now his solution was to use the LiveView Solo with LRT turned on to stabilize the frame and bitrate. This also worked with the Teradek system that he had too. Here's a link to his video if you want to check it out. With these tips in mind, we headed up to the Torrey Pines glider port in La Jolla for further testing. This time I placed the Starlink on top of the car, which is super cool. I set up the Starlink and the LiveView Solo, and lo and behold, success. Doug was right. There were still some glitches here and there, but this was looking far better than the earlier tests at Idea One. However, the results weren't quite good enough for professional work. Note, you don't need to have cellular modems plugged in for this to work. Even with one source connected, the LRT does its thing, essentially conditioning the signal to have a stable frame rate despite erratic bit rates. These tests were promising, but the locations weren't remote enough. I had to test it from a place without cell service to really know if I was going to keep it. So we decided to head back to one of our favorite camping spots, Garth's Boulder Gardens. It's by Joshua Tree in the high desert and quite remote and beautiful. My Verizon cell phone doesn't work there, and neither does my ATT modem. We're testing out the Ursa G2 connected to the LiveView Solo, which is sending a signal down yonder to the Starlink satellite. Let's go check that out. As you can see, we've got the Jackery, solar panels powering the Starlink, and extension cord running up there to the camera. Upload speeds on the Starlink varied widely from 2 megabits per second up to 10 megabits per second. The best looking streams were at 720p at 30 frames per second. I also tried it at 1080p, but honestly, there were just far too many glitches to consider it as a solution for a professional situation. However, to its credit, the stream never totally dropped out. Here's an example of what these glitches look like. Now for power, I used the Jackery Explorer 1000 and 2 solar panels. I'm getting 97 watts in and 85 watts out. The battery's at 94%. It provided ample power for a full day of streaming. The Jackery powered the laptop, Ursa Broadcast G2, LiveView Solo, and the Starlink without any issues. I was pleasantly surprised to see that more power was going into the Jackery through the solar panels than was going out to power the gear. So this test was completely battery powered with only a satellite connection to the outside world. After returning to San Diego, I set the sucker aside for a couple of weeks to work on other projects. But the next time I took it out was at Fiesta Island. This time, I wanted to test out a couple of ideas. 1, how would the Starlink handle Zoom? 2, how would it work if we used Livestream Studio to stream directly to Vimeo? And 3, could I mount the Starlink on a C-stand? Well, yeah, look, I was able to do it. It's actually, I'll show you right now, mounted on a Cardellini clamp to the base here. And that's mounted to a C-stand. And these Cardellini clamps cost about anywhere between like 35 to 50 bucks. It's not too bad. And it allows you to, raise it up and down. Turn it side to side. Very stable. Be sure to put a sandbag at the bottom. Okay. So first off, I set up the streaming gear in the back of the SUV and set up a canopy to protect us from direct sunlight. As I mentioned, I was able to mount the Starlink to a C-stand using a Cardellini clamp, and this is definitely the way to go. Hey, look, I'm bringing sand to the beach. But safety first, right? Yeah. Open up the Starlink app. Let's see what happens. I haven't turned it on in a while.
There it goes.
Offline. There it goes. There it goes. All right, it's trying to find a signal. Let's see how long it takes to find the signal.
There's a lot of action right there.
Yes. Yes.
I know, right?
It's recording?
Yes.
So you can see it's still offline. It usually takes a couple of minutes for it to find a signal. I already found 3 network devices that we have that are attached to it. Offline network issue.
Searching.
Online, there we go. Hey, that took like what? Less than a minute, right? I used the A10 Mini Pro ISO to convert the signal from the camera and a Wi-Fi connection from the laptop to the Starlink. This lightweight setup worked like a charm. I tested out a Zoom connection with Jeff of Turbo.fm.
It's Zoom. Zoom is just going to be this way, man.
So then it is just as good as what we were streaming with Blaze, because that was all Zoom.
I guess so, man. I mean, but yeah, I would say that it's a little choppier. Oh, there's a couple of stutters.
Next, I wanted to see how Livestream Studio worked with Starlink. I had to try several settings before I could get it to work though. At first only 720p 60 worked, but eventually I ended up trying their new MPEG dash encoding system. It worked like a charm, it worked great. Their new MPEG dash encoding option really conditioned the signal into a very stable stream, even at 1080p 60 at around 4.5 megabits per second up. After streaming for a while though, there were a couple of connection warnings. Just now got a couple of warnings, connection too slow for quality. Did these affect the actual video? I don't know, let's find out. According to Vimeo, here are the pros and cons of using MPEG-beta. When you choose to stream using MPEG-, your viewers are much less likely to experience interruptions, buffering, and choppy playback that server or encoder issues can cause. However, this protocol can only do so by introducing additional latency or delay from your event to your viewers. The latency when you use the default RTMPS setting is about 15 to 20 seconds. If you stream via MPEG-, the latency to your viewers will be closer to 1 minute. Eventually, I also tried the new Vimeo browser-based webinar feature and had really good results with that. As you can see, we're still streaming live on Vimeo. Now I changed it to streaming with the browser app that they have. We've gotten really good connections there. All in all, we did about 7 hours of streaming, and the Jackery held up with about 37% left at the end of the day. Everything was plugged in, there was about 95 watts of draw. The latest test I did was over the July 4th weekend at the Tijuana River Valley campgrounds. It's right by the Mexican border, and you can even see the border wall from the campsite. And when I first fired up the Starlink, it thought I was in Mexico. But eventually, it switched over to San Diego. I kept getting a message saying that I was on the limited Starlink RV, but this didn't really seem to affect anything. We are here at the Tijuana River Park. I know it sounds nasty, but it's actually not smelly like the Tijuana River. This time, I wanted to test it with the LiveView Solo and the USB modems. My ATT and Verizon modems didn't have much of a signal at all down there, maybe 1 megabits per second up and down. Starlink was averaging around 7 to 12 megabits per second and 70 to 90 down. Testing with the LiveView coupled with the Starlink, ATT, and Verizon modems had mixed results. The modems kept going in and out. Not a problem though, because Starlink was there as a very reliable backup option. Eventually, I switched back to streaming with the laptop and Livestream Studio. The results were great, even better than the last test at Fiesta Island. I did find one error message in the video that was recorded on Vimeo. Here it is. Seems like this might be caused by the connection being too slow. Maybe this is something Vimeo can address before it comes out of beta testing. So I'm back here on the 5th floor of Idea 1 because I had to do one more test with the Starlink. I didn't test it with the Sling Studio, and I have a wedding coming up where I want to use that, so I thought I'd better test it anyway. The siren's coming, it's a crazy day in San Diego, it's incredibly hot at 75 degrees. I'll run a speed test with 5G and compare that to the Starlink. Here's internet speed test with 5G that's already installed on the iPad. In downtown San Diego, 109.7 down. And 45.4 up. Now, we test the Starlink. Let's see what we got here. All right, so not very good results. 15 megabits per second down and 6 megabits per second upload. Let's go live again and see if this is gonna work. There we go. There we go, that's what I like to see. It's splitting the connection pretty evenly with the Starlink on Ethernet and the 2 USB modems. And now, is it actually going to Vimeo? All right. That's what we like to see. Okay, good. Okay, let's see what happens for 5 minutes. Good stable connection on the Vimeo side. Live view's looking good. We're gonna remove the hotspots and see if it really is redundant. So no hotspots, just the Starlink. Let's see how that affects the signal over here. Starting to drop. Oh, that's going back up. Whoa, it just shot up and then shot down. It's going crazy. What about on Vimeo? What does Vimeo say? Oh, it's getting all choppy on us now.
Yeah. I'm going to call it the Starlink dropped packets. Because that's exactly what's happening. They're just, the train is getting there, but it's dropping off cars, the box cars. It just drops them on the side of the train. It just doesn't.
Impressively though, the Ethernet went up when you unplug the modems. It's going up. But yeah, look at the crazy bitrate. So we're looking at the actual Vimeo stream and not the low-res view, and that seems to be doing pretty well despite the loss in bitrate.
The bit rate's down, but
Quality's not that great, but we are seeing this on 5G.
and this is auto, right?
And this is on auto.
And yeah, we're streaming it off of 5G on a laptop. So.
And as you can see, we're still getting pretty crazy fluctuations there in the bit rate. The frame rate staying steady.
I would say the lowest test we've ever seen, I think, on Starlink upload was in high single digits, like 8 to 9 megabits per second. So if you were in a critical remote situation, I would take a quarter of that, like 2,000 or 2 megabits per second, 2,000 kilobits per second or 2 megabits per second, and start there. See if you get consistent quality, if your client's satisfied, the audio's good, the video's consistent, it's not buffering on any device that you're using. Have someone remotely test to see the quality. And I think around 2,000, you're gonna be solid on Starlink, if just using Starlink.
Hey, all right, I had to do one more test because I wasn't convinced that it wouldn't work on the last test. And I just want to give it one more chance. I just want to give it one more chance. Come on, Starlink. We got the Starlink on top of the car here. Okay, for the record, we're doing a speed test here. Speedtest.net. This is in downtown San Diego by the water, in a place called Seaport Village. Results: 6.7 upload, 21.2 download. So we've got Belkin, USB-C to Ethernet adapter. Starlink. Router's right there. It's running into $25 adapter. Got the Starlink on the car. I may have an obstruction with this tree. I don't know. I didn't think about that when I parked. Trees can be obstructions. So let's give it a shot. It's going to try to stream to Cinemaviva live stream test to Vimeo once again. And I'm going to press go on the camera. See if we get good luck. "13 megabits per second. Wow. Now it started here. Okay, I like that. Stuttering, unstable connection. It's on streaming low. This is still on H.264 low, 13 megabits per second. Still says unstable connection here. So let's look at stream health. Very unstable. Viewers may experience buffering problems. Check your available bandwidth and connect to Vimeo. Even though that says 13 megabits per second, this is only averaging 1.5 bitrate 2, frame rate 0, average frame rate 2. So yeah, no bueno. So after 2 months, it's still not working with going directly out of the G2 and into the Starlink. There's just not enough bandwidth, and the bitrate fluctuates way too much. So there you have it. That's my test. Sticking to it. We'll test this again another couple of months after some more updates. After having Starlink for a couple of months and conducting various tests, here are my conclusions. Overall, I'm very impressed with the product. I'm sure we'll keep getting better as they keep adding more satellites. Their team seems to do updates regularly, which is great. And here are the pros and cons I experienced with Starlink. So the pros are that you can stream from practically anywhere in the US and Mexico. It's easy to set up and relatively quick to deploy. It's well built and provides a dependable internet connection with unlimited data. And you can also pause the subscription in monthly intervals. Now the cons. Sorry to say, but inconsistent bitrate, it's just crazy. I'm not happy with that. It's bulky compared to cellular modems. The upload speed is not that great. It could be better. I would be super happy if they could get it up to the 20 to 30 megabits per second range. Another con is the $135 a month subscription. And it's very sensitive to obstructions. You really have to have a really clear area to use this in. But I think the best formula is to use Starlink in conjunction with the LiveView Solo or the Teradek system if you have that. You can practically stream from any country they service as long as you have an unobstructed view of the sky. While I don't think I would rely on it as a main streaming option just yet, it can definitely add to your stream redundancy, which is of utmost importance when live streaming a crucial event. If there's no other option, then the tricks I mentioned in this video can get it done for you. And if you need to monitor your stream in the field, then with 70 to 150 megabits per second download speeds, it works perfectly. That way you can have a separate incoming internet connection than your outgoing connection for monitoring. And though I haven't tested it yet, you could theoretically use the Starlink for sending the backup stream to your CDN if it has that option. Hey, so that's my Starlink story. I'll keep testing it and working with it as opportunities arise. Thanks for watching this long-ass video. I hope you gleaned some knowledge from our efforts here at Cinemaviva. As always, I'm Horacio Jones, and me and Starlink wish you mucho suceso. Show us your burrito.
My burrito is a bean and cheesy.
Let's get a close up.
It's a mild cheese.
It's a San Diego bean and cheese burrito, everybody. Say hi, Angel.
Hi.
Say hi, Alex.
Can't not have it without the salsa.